you.
Give it 2 more minutes for people to trickle in. Thank you guys for being here. This is really fun.
Good to have you here.
Yes. So funny. I think I had a dream last night that I was in the whole Beit like live. And that's the library. Right. It's fun to be in our own building and actually have like these real event space to do stuff.
Yeah. It's
Very
wonderful that
nice.
way.
I held a musical in this space 2 years ago.
I love that.
We had over 150 people today.
That's incredible. In the past, we would have had to be at like, the UU fellowship or,
Right.
some other space. It's nice. We have an actual parking lot. Any problem?
Like nobody has objections, I just want to take a picture of the crowd.
This is useful, and then you take me out of
We should all come back together for you.
Here, maybe if I do a little bit more, there we go. That's great. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Mama.
Oh,
I'm gonna do her introduction.
Okay. I'll get to be adjacent famous. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us to celebrate the launch of Sweet Talk. Stick around for a reading followed by a Q&A, book signing, and ice cream. For those new to their work, Rena and her co-author Ella are the co-founders of Smoke Show, a queer-led media company dedicated to telling stories with heart, humor, and hijinks across books, film, TV, podcasts, and stage. They met by pure cosmic accident while developing made-for-TV rom-coms and have been unstoppable creative partners ever since. Their debut novel, The Christmas Pick, someone's going to pick it up because it's not the right book.
It's back there.
It's back there. Was a top 10 bestseller in Amazon's lesbian fiction category, won the 2024 Lesfic Bard Award for Best New Author, and was a finalist at the New Mexico Book Awards. Sweet Talk is their highly anticipated sophomore novel, and it hit #1 on Amazon's Best New LGBTQ Releases in its very first week. Here's our author.
Thank you all for being here. I'm really special to get to share this book with the Jewish community that I grew up with, and I'm really grateful to my parents and Ken for helping make all of this come together. So thank you all. Hello to my family on Zoom. I love you guys. All right. Well, so I'm going to start with reading an excerpt from Sweet Talk. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Awesome. So this is not the first chapter, it is chapter 6, although the opening chapters are pretty short. But this is kind of a pivotal early chapter, but not too much of a spoiler for anything to come. So just a little teaser. And yeah, just a little background. So it is a dual POV novel. So it doesn't alternate chapters exactly, but you get sort of the perspectives of both of our romantic leads. And this chapter is from the perspective of Noah, who is, she's an ice cream scientist. That is a real job. And I did a lot of research on. She works at Jen and Mary's, which is our sweet talk version of Ben and Jerry's. They are
So it says, Jen and Mary's, this ice cream fights fashion.
a little homage to Me Guthrie and also to Ben and Jerry's, which has been really fighting the good fight, especially recently. We'll talk about that in the Q&A, but our book became weirdly extra relevant, being about an outspoken talk show host and an ice cream scientist working for a socially active ice cream company. But anyway, so this chapter, just to give a little context, Noah just got dragged out of the house by her twin brother Aiden for a night at a lesbian bar, and she unfortunately has just spotted her ex in the crowd. So, all right, chapter 6, Noah. From the first moment I laid eyes on Casey at Lesbian Book Club 2 years ago, I was cooked. Perched on a leather armchair at Her Story Books, she commanded the room with an easy confidence, leading a heated discussion about the metaphor of time travel in Octavia Butler's work. Her pink-tinted wolf cut caught the late afternoon light, and I found myself mesmerized by her hands and arms, covered in fine-line tattoos of constellations and botanical illustrations. I sat in the back, clutching my dog-eared copy of Kindred and praying I wouldn't have to speak. Casey was a fashion photographer who knew every hipster lesbian east of Cahuenga, greeting them all with inside jokes and casual intimacy. She had strong opinions about magical realism and could quote Deleuze on demand, which should have been insufferable, but I was all in. I had dated my share of women and men and NBs in my teens and early 20s, but I hadn't dated anyone since grad school, and I was majorly out of practice. The isolation of my flavor fellowship with Stoic Stella had set me back. When met with Casey's cool girl ease, my brain and mouth seemed to disconnect in spectacular fashion every time I got within a few feet of her. But Casey seemed to find my verbal stumbles charming. She'd laugh, not unkindly, and draw me out with gentler questions until we finally broke through that barrier of comfort where I could form complete sentences and she could get to know me. We bonded over our love of musical theater and experimental cooking, though her idea of experimental usually involved something unintentionally fermenting on her windowsill. The first time we kissed, I felt our entire future together flash through my mind. I saw Sunday mornings making mochi pancakes, road trips to exclusive desert art installations, growing old surrounded by rescue cats and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Then she pulled back. We can keep this low-key, right? I nodded dumbly, and we were off to the races for 18 months of inconsistent texting and missed hangs, punctuated by handwritten poems slipped into my bag. Candlelit dinners, followed by being ignored at parties. Sweet nothings undermined by stinging caveats. I wish I had the self-worth to have ended things for good, but it was Casey who called it. She met some tarot reader who does non-competitive gymnastics as an adult and fell in high-key love like she never did with me. Ugh. It's been 6 months since the breakup. The rejection still stings, but what's worse is knowing I had so little self-respect that I would have accepted her scraps forever. Now I'm hiding out in the bathroom stall at the Velvet Tongue, stress scrolling my favorite food chemistry blog about the crystallization patterns in chocolate tempering. All because Casey's disruptive pink hair materialized at the other end of the bar as I was closing out my tab. Aiden didn't notice my exit because he was, as per usual, surrounded by a gaggle of gays and theys, the perpetual life of the party. The restroom door bursts open with such force that it bangs against the wall. 2 sets of footsteps click across the tile floor, accompanied by heated whispers that quickly escalate. You brought me to a lesbian bar? I can hear the panic in the woman's voice. For one of your last nights on the town, you might not get to come here again unless, the second woman trails off. I can see the panicking woman pace through the crack in the stall door. You had no right to put me in this situation. These are the safest people you could ever be yourself around. No one is trying to tattle on each other. They just want to have a relaxed, gay time. There's a long silence, and I realize I'm holding my breath. I'm so invested in these 2 strangers' sudden drama. The pacing woman stills. This is not working.
Oh, we're doing this again? I can't tell what's happening beyond the confines of my little eavesdropping booth, but I hear more footsteps than the door, swinging open again, followed by silence. At least someone's having a worse night than me. I'm not surprised the closeted lady freaked out about being here. Even the sinks at the Velvet Tongue are gay. The faucet is a tongue emerging from between two fingers in a peace sign, which is inspirational to me, but I get that not everyone will be on the same page. I finished my article on chocolate tempering before leaving the stall because why rush? It's not like Aiden is missing me. No one is. I wash my hands and something clatters in the supply closet to my left. Probably just a mop falling over, but in my current state, I'll take any excuse to linger in this bathroom. I dry my hands and head over to investigate. I turn the door handle. Jeepers! The scream tears out of me. There's a woman wedged halfway through what has to be the tiniest window I've ever seen, her legs kicking in the air like an overturned beetle. The window is a good 7 feet up the wall, a stack of paper towel boxes arranged below her into a makeshift stepladder. Do you need... Shit. One leg stops kicking long enough to wave at me emphatically. Don't call anyone. Are you stuck? It's a stupid question. She's very obviously stuck, but my brain is still trying to process the scene in front of me. No, I often like to hang out of small windows, comes the muffled response. Right, well, I'll leave you to it, I guess. Yes, of course I'm stuck, she snaps. And if you could maybe help instead of just standing there, this is taking every last bit of ab strength I have. I square my shoulders. Right, we're gonna get you down, no problemo. The woman groans. No, I need you to help me get the rest of the weight out. I'm leaving. Right. Yes, 1 sec, I tell the maniac, not wanting to upset her delusion. I step into the messy closet with zero plan on how to help. Any suggestions as to how I can assist? The woman manages to twist her body to the side just enough to look at me. Maybe she's an adult hobby gymnast too. Well, if she is an adult hobby gymnast with a face that could convince me to start doing gymnastics as a hobby. She's got Pantene commercial thick black hair and dark lashes to match, with 2 arched, perfectly manicured eyebrows currently raised accusingly at me. Sorry, I zone out sometimes. Did you say something? I scramble my way out of the embarrassment of being caught checking her out. I need you to lift my knee, cup it, and push me up so we can swing my leg over the ledge. I do as I'm told. You're very spatially aware for someone who got stuck in a window. She snorts so softly I can tell she didn't intend to laugh but couldn't help herself. Okay, that's good. Now push, she instructs. At first, I'm not sure I'll be strong enough to give her the boost she needs, but then her weight is off of me and she's climbing through the window and landing with a metallic crash. Now it's my turn to scale the tower of boxes. I poke my head out to find her face down in a dumpster. Are you? She gives me a thumbs up from her prone position. I've never met someone so desperate to get inside a dumpster. I do it for the thrill, she mumbles in her stick. Do you need me to call someone? Mom? 311? Therapist? She attempts to right herself atop the mountain of trash bags, but her arms just sink into the mushy, shifting heap of crumpled poetry reading flyers. Does it look like I have a therapist? Her balance betrays her every time she nears stability. It's a slow motion disaster until she finally ends up right back where she started. There's a straw on your head. She fishes it out of her locks. Better me than a sea turtle. Finding a foothold on a nearby trash hill, she hoists herself up with frankly impressive upper body strength. Like an Olympian on the planet's nastiest pommel horse, she swings her leg over the rim before landing with an offensively gentle thud on solid ground. Maybe if I used my thinking rod for its intended purpose, I could one day climb out of a dumpster with such effortless grace. Her head pops back up over the metal wall. I look forward to never seeing you again. Same, I wave. And with a small tilt of her head and a tight smile, she spins on her heel and disappears into the night. And that is our character's dumpster meet cute. I guess I could have started with this, but I'll give a little background on the entire the whole plot. So I'll just read the back to you. That'll be easier than me rambling. Could late night's saltiest host find her sweetest match? Dr. Noah Hart, who we just met, lives her life unapologetically, from her PhD in ice cream science to the eccentric bumper sticker collection on her ancient VW Bug Ringo car. She's never hidden who she is, which is why she's completely unprepared to fall for someone who's spent her adult years doing the opposite. Comedian Artie Nair, that's our dumpster girl, has clawed her way to the top as the first woman of color to host a legendary late-night talk show. But between balancing network expectations and hiding her true self, she's drowning until a nitrogen canister explosion changes everything. When their off-the-charts chemistry pivots the show in a new direction, Artie and Noah's professional partnership becomes dangerously personal. With Artie's career hanging in the balance, can she risk everything for love? And can Noah protect her heart without compromising who she is, even if it means walking away? These are the questions. But yeah, and if you didn't already sort of figure it out, they're going to be developing Artie's signature ice cream flavor, a la American Dream and the Tonight Show and whatnot. So there's lots of delicious ice cream and food in this book. And there is a happy ending, because I think that's important.
So, okay, so this is the Q&A part. And I'll just start off, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet Talk is set in the world of late night TV and ice cream science. A very original combo. Where did that idea come from?
So Ella, my writing and creative partner, had come up with this sort of seed of an idea during like a logline writing exercise in one of her writing groups. I'm pretty sure Ella is maybe even more obsessed with ice cream than I am. Like she does eat it year round, even if it is snowing outside. And I think she was eating Ben and Jerry's and was like, I think there's something fun about, developing a new flavor and trying to put someone's personality into, a pint. So it really was just a seed of an idea about like a talk show host and someone that makes flavors for ice cream. And it was about a year ago, almost. It was like last December. I was in New Mexico where Ella lives, and we were driving. We were all sort of on like a little mini road trip and trying to figure out after the Christmas pick what our next book was going to be. And she pitched this to me, and there were so many. Ella and I sort of met in this context where she was my writer and I was producing her like TV rom-coms for like Lifetime and Hallmark. And so part of our relationship that I think works well with each other is that I'm often wearing the producer hat early in the process, which means I'm like the whatever it is, a stick in the wheel. That's not right, but so when she pitched me this, it was like I had a lot of questions. I was mostly like, the premise here is that the Artie's predecessor of like the biggest late night talk show in America gets fired for being politically outspoken. And I was like, that seems a little extreme. And also, honestly, like Artie's arc is that she's been, she was on sort of an SNL type show, and now she's been tapped to fill these shoes. And she's a little bit of like what people are unkindly in the world of the book calling like a diversity hire, sort of the network trying to prove that like, oh, we're not anti-woke. We brought an Indian American in, but really at the same time, she really is supposed to be like playing it so like not being controversial in any way. Otherwise, she's going to sort of lose her dream job. And I remember us talking about the whole concept in that car ride. And I was like, the predecessor getting fired, is that really going to happen in this day and age? And also, are the stakes, Ellen DeGeneres and Rosie O'Donnell exist? Like, is it really so believable that in 2025, a late night host would have to really be in the closet in order to keep their job? And unfortunately, I think, honestly, even just like in the weeks preceding this book's release on September 30th, it became even more clear that actually maybe the stakes, unfortunately, were exactly realistic in a way that neither of us ever would have wanted them to be. But I also will say that I think the the nice thing about the books that we write, and even in Harmony Springs, the sort of fictional gay Christmas town that our first book is set in, Ella and I just really believe in writing about the world that we want to live in and not necessarily the one that exists right now, because I think that's how you create a better future, is by believing it's possible. And so even though there's some stuff that turned out to be kind of ripped from the headlines in Sweet Talk, like I said before, it has a happy ending, and that's really important to us, because I also think people really need sweetness and hope right now, and that's the only way that we can really work towards a better future, is to sort of envision it ourselves. So anyway, that was kind of the seed of our yeah.
So the book blends romance, comedy, and deeper themes of authenticity and queerness. What do you hope readers will take away?
Kind of what I just said, I guess, which is that that there's that better things are possible if we imagine them. and yeah, and I think that also being yourself, I think sort of the underlying message of the book is that being yourself uncompromisingly is the single most important thing that you can do. And something, without giving any spoilers about sort of the third act of our novel, another thing that Ella and I spoke about a lot going into it, a lot of romance novels and rom-coms in general, even films, they have this sort of trope of the third act breakup, which is frequently very frustrating. If you are an emotionally mature person reading these books, you're usually man, if these two characters just talked to each other, or went to a single couples counseling session, or just used their discussed their feelings openly, maybe this wouldn't be happening. And we went into this book being we understand, story-wise, that you need to sort of rise into some tension, and it's important to have friction between your main characters. But we were we really don't want a third act breakup that feels rooted in anything other than genuine emotional struggles that emotionally healthy people could still face. And so, again, without sort of giving too much away, hopefully it's while it all leads to a happy ending, I also think there's an important message baked into even the strife that the characters face, where it doesn't feel manufactured by man, if they would just have a phone call. It's they actually do talk about it and come to, there's a point where I think you understand why things are not working, and it doesn't feel artificial, and it actually is an important seed for the ultimate character growth of both of them. So I think I'm proud of that.
What was the most fun scene to write, and the hardest?
The dumpster scene, that I just read, was a lot of fun to write, just because when we've toyed with a lot of different ways for them to initially meet each other, and we were just we really just wanted to write what's the weirdest place that you can have, be cute and be have a spark with someone, but also just be sort of how do we make it sort of bizarre but believable? And once we kind of landed on the idea of this crawling out the window and falling into the dumpster, it was very a big part of writing Artie's character that was really fun. It was that her background, she was on Midnight Live, which is SNL, and her kind of signature is that she's she's a physical comedian. And so a lot of sort of the Artie parts early on, especially, we were really trying to bake in this physical comedy and physicality to everything that she does. And so it was fun to sort of figure out what that looked like with the meet cute. And then I would say there's sort of a meet cute part 2 that comes a few chapters later, that when you read the book, I think you'll understand why it was really tough to write. It was a scene where they're meeting for the second time, and we sort of almost wrote it in a placeholdery way, and then finished the rest of the book. And then it was only when we had finished writing were we able to go back to that second meet cute and really finesse it and massage it. It was a big struggle. So I think when you read it, you'll kind of know which part I'm talking about. I don't want to give anything more away, but it may have to do with the aforementioned nitrogen canister.
So you and Ella have been writing together for years now. How do you actually co-write a novel? What's your process like?
So we've written our two books in kind of different ways. The Christmas pick, we really took on, it was also like a dual POV structure, and we really did for the initial draft of that, we each chose a character and like wrote their chapters. We were working off of like an outline, and with that one we were actually adapting like an old Hallmark script into like this sapphic romance. And but we really did like switch off, and like I wrote Joe and she wrote Ava, and then as we moved on with revisions and future drafts, then we kind of got into each other's chapters. For Sweet Talk, it was a little more all over the place. We each wrote, we have like a Google Doc where everything lives, and that's like shared between us. But it was much more of like, what do you have time to do today? I'm going to write a couple chapters, then I'll pass them off to you. And we each kind of got our hands into both characters' voices, and I think it, in my perspective, I think it actually really like deepened the story we were telling overall, because I think both of us ended up invested in a different way in kind of both journeys. And I think we ended up with a more just like a deeper emotional arc for Noah and Artie. But yeah, TBD how we'll do our next book. I don't know. I think there's pros and cons to both styles of collaboration.
Can you give us a sneak peek about what you're working on next?
Yeah, we're well, we have a sense of what our third book is going to be. But we're also, well, we have sort of two branching ideas. We have like a kind of like a something that's a genre that we haven't written in together before, that's more of like a YA kind of mystery. And then we sort of know what our next romance will be, but we're not sure which of those two is going to come first. And then we're also currently adapting the Christmas pick into a stage musical. And yeah, that's been really fun. We actually just a couple days ago, we got our first demo recording back from a couple of friends of ours that we sent our very messy version to, and then they made it sound like a real song. So that's in the works. And then yeah, as Smoke Show, we are constantly doing way too many things at once. So we've got a couple podcasts that we're producing. We've got like a feminist body horror feature film that we're shopping around a script of at the moment. And yeah, our MO is just kind of like doing everything at once, and we're a little bit crazy, but we have so much fun together that like I couldn't see us doing anything else. So yeah.
So time for questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Yes. How long does it take you normally to write a book?
Well, when we wrote the Christmas pick, it, like I said, it came from like a feature script that had been, it was like a straight romance for Hallmark, and we had been working on that script for a couple of like maybe for a year and a half or so, like developing it. So it was a little bit almost like we'd done a lot of legwork of the development in script form, and then when we decided to turn it into a book, it went much faster. However, I'll tell you in a second how long that took to write as a book, but we also swore after we did that last year that we were never going to write at that speed again, because it was unhealthy and insane. So we decided that we were going to turn that script into a novel. I would say it was at the end of September 2023, and 2024, sorry. And we released the book on November 15th, 2023.
Oh.
And basically it was written in the month of October. Like it was, I don't recommend that. I don't endorse that. I don't know how we did it. I was in a fugue state, but I'm really proud of that book. But we spent longer on Sweet Talk. It was also, Sweet Talk was spaced out a little more. Like I said, we came up with the concept and decided to write it back in December, right after we come out with Christmas Pick. And then, I don't know. I mean, cumulatively, I would say it was like maybe more 3 to 4 months of like writing, but it also took place over the last almost year. Which is, yeah, we do write pretty quick together. I mean, I can't say enough good things about having a writing partner. It really, like, you relay a lot more. And I find that, like, those little dips of writer's block and stuff, you just can move through it so much faster when you're able to sort of bounce things back and forth with another person, and also just feeling like being held accountable in your writing process. And also because we both came from this world of writing, like, made for TV rom-coms, where the speed of that was also breakneck. So, like, you would have you'd go from a log line to a script being sent to production, like to shoot, in like 3 months. So we're used to sort of working at a writing for TV pace, which I think, you know, it helps. But yeah.
Anything else?
Yes, did that experience then, you know, of writing movies, which have, as you said, a pretty traditional, in many cases, narrative arc, did that just really help you sort of start from the ground up? I mean, you know, help you when you started moving into novels?
Definitely. I think that our experience writing scripts and writing in the romance space, especially where there's such a sort of, especially writing in Hallmark and Lifetime world, there's so much like rigid structure and so many rules about, like, you know, what page certain types of beats have to come by and all that. I think it's been helpful for us in 2 ways. The first is, like, yeah, it helps us kind of just do the first, what you call, like, the vomit draft or the vomit outline, where you're just like, this happens and then this happens and then this happens, and it's not pretty, but it's just kind of like you're just throwing the beats out on a wall. And then I think the other side of it is, like, because we have so much experience within that really rigid structure, then when we're writing, I think what we enjoy about writing prose and writing these books is that we have the freedom to go, like, well, we want to turn this trope on its head, like the 3rd act breakup. Or one of the reasons that we ended up turning The Christmas Pick into a novel, it wasn't only because we wanted to make it sapphic, but it was also, there's like a female CEO and a small town photographer, like, who has like a little photography truck. And those are like the 2 main characters. And when it was, you know, a hetero romance, it was a female photographer with a photo truck and a male CEO. And when we were pitching that around, it was getting some interest and some bites, but, like, also it wasn't making enough waves. And I don't know. So then we were like, well, we like a version maybe where the woman is the CEO. And that was literally the only thing we changed. It was a man and a woman still falling in love, but we made it so that the woman was the CEO and the man was the small town photo business. And immediately, from multiple people that we were pitching it to, we hadn't changed anything else about these characters. People were like, I'm just finding Ava unlikable, or, like, she's kind of like, she's too, like, cutthroat. She's just not enough. It's just not a female romantic lead. And so that really was the thing that made us go, well, we're both queer women, and honestly, we hate that we're getting this feedback. This is a great story, and we would rather just write the version completely that we actually want to tell, which is queer. And that was kind of our motivation for turning it into, like, the sapphic romance that exists now, that performed well enough that after we published it, we had producers reach out and go, do you want to turn this into a movie? And then we had to be like, sorry, actually, we're crazy, and we decided it has to be a stage musical. That's another story. But yeah, so I think what we've enjoyed about moving out of, you know, that, like, very sort of limiting space in TV movie land is the ability to, it's really, I don't know, and my background is in producing and in the film industry in LA, and you find this across so many different genres, is, like, execs and the people that give feedback on scripts. Everyone kind of just, like, gives, there's some amazing people out there, but, like, frequently, especially in Hallmark and Lifetime, you just hear the recycled notes that, like, it's people are just echoing the thing that they heard from their boss and their boss and their colleague. And, like, so you just end up in these ruts where people are like, oh, we just don't do that. And you start to question, like, why? Because you're actually in touch with, like, the people that watch these movies. And there can be such a disconnect between what people think of as, like, the rules of these movies and what actually people want to see. And that was sort of our motivation for self-publishing our books, was, like, we were just convinced that we knew that there was an audience for the stories we wanted to actually tell. And it turned it so far, that has been the case, and it's been very like vindicating and validating, you know, sort of find power in our own voices and putting our own stories out in the world without waiting for people that have just been sitting in their same chairs for many, many years and kind of putting out movies that frequently feel like recycled concepts and characters. And there are some gems out there too, but that's not the norm. So, yeah. Yes.
So when you self-publish a book, how do you promote it? How do you get it into bookstores?
Yeah. So we did technically, Smoke Show has like an imprint that is Smoke Show Press. That is how we publish our books. So but right now we just publish our own novels. So, you know, it's not like we sent it off to an editor and someone else was like, we do have an editor, but like, you know, we didn't send it off to a publisher and they were like, we choose this book. But in terms of promotion, so we do, it's not ideal, and all the other indie authors that we're in community with, especially the queer ones, but really everyone, not thrilled to have to sort of be on Amazon and Kindle, but that is the marketplace where especially like Sweet Talk and Christmas Pick are available on Kindle Unlimited. So, you know, people read those books, and that has been a way to get our name out there, is just by being on Amazon. Not that I mean, that's not the promotion in and of itself, but being available on Amazon is kind of an important step for self-published people, just because it's sort of become the expectation within the indie self-publishing world is that like you're available there. There's also just there's an incredibly supportive community of like LGBT indie writers. And like, that's, you know, until we did a little bit, like maybe $100 of paid advertising for both books. And if anyone is magical at ads, please help us. But that has not been the reason that we've gotten on top of lists and stuff. It's all been sort of organic and grassroots. And a lot of it has been Instagram and TikTok and, you know, Book Talk, and literally just finding every like sapphic and queer book newsletter and doing interviews and doing, you know, going and posting like an interview on YouTube with another author that self-publishes and kind of, you know, batting each other's audiences back and forth. And just all of it has really been about like community building and going on, we're not really on Twitter anymore, but on Threads, which is Instagram's Twitter, basically, literally just responding to people and looking for anyone that posts like, hey, I need a new sapphic romance, or, you know, after Christmas Pick, we published 10 days after Trump was elected. And I remember we didn't really think about it that much prior. When we chose our publication date, it was just like, well, it has to come out before Christmas. And we finished the book at the end of October. So like, we're going to do November 15th and, you know, to have time to like publish the physical copies and stuff. And, I remember after Trump got elected, especially because under Project 2025, although it hasn't happened yet, technically, like, this is pornography and could get banned, or, you know, I mean, and TBD whether these will be available on Amazon in the next year because of different things that are happening. It is banned book week this week, by the way. But it felt very like, I was worried that it felt sort of glib, honestly, prior to the Christmas Pick coming out, to go online and be like, hey, queer people, like, come buy our book, please. Because it was like LGBT people were very rightfully like terrified and looking at the future and going like, you know, do I need to leave the country? Like, are my rights going to be taken away? And I think the really beautiful thing that happened was that we did go out and promote the book, and Ella actually was a big force for me. I was very depressed and scared, and Ella was like, this is actually the only thing we really can do right now, is try to get our book to other queer people, because it's happy and it takes place in like this, you know, invented queer town that celebrates Christmas year round, and it has a happy ending and it's very upbeat. It was like, that's why people watch Hallmark and Lifetime movies. And it was like, this is sort of our book version of like a cozy Christmas rom-com. And she was just like, I don't think it's, you know, if we think it's glib, then it will feel glib. But if we just believe that like what we have to offer is actually going to help people right now, then I think we should go out and try to promote the hell out of it everywhere online that we can. And it helped me because I was just kind of paralyzed with sadness and fear for our country. And it gave me something to do in those immediate weeks right after. And it also, it came back to be completely true. It was like, if you go online and read the reviews, I mean, so many of them from that time period, it was people being like, and people sent us DMs, like direct messages, and they were just like, I can't tell you how much I needed this story right now. And like thanking us for putting it out there. And it was very beautiful. And yeah, so I don't know, it's like a long-winded scope of an answer, but I think, yeah, it's been the most helpful thing for us in marketing has been for me to get rid of the idea that I'm like promoting myself and to more so just remember the people that I'm writing for. And then it's much easier to just go out online and very genuinely be like, hey, we wrote this thing for our community and like it has a happy ending and here's where you can read it. And that's been kind of our most successful tactic for getting a readership. Yeah.
So I'm really intrigued with the idea of two people writing a book together. And clearly you're writing a book with someone you're very close to. And maybe your styles are just because you know each other so well, maybe your styles just automatically mesh. But I just wonder if that's something you have to really work at. Otherwise, it seems like it would be really jarring, go from one chapter to another with a style change.
Yeah. I mean, so we are kind of looking at the future and considering future books where we're not going to have the dual POV. But yeah, I mean, like I said, with Sweet Talk, we didn't do the Christmas pick thing where we each chose a character. We both wrote each character at different points, and then edited together. And all I can say is, and when we write scripts, we're not writing dual POV, we're just writing together. We definitely don't have like the same written voice, but we're very compatible. And so much of like the, writing is rewriting thing. It's like, we have really a rapport in the revision process that we listen to each other really well. And we both have very keen like editorial perspectives in addition to being writers. And so we'll each advocate for either character, but frequently, sometimes Ella will be like, I don't feel like Artie would say that, or I feel like that's a Noah line, or I'll be like, this word feels wrong, and we totally like we'll bicker about something, but it's like with respect. But like I think I've had a lot of creative collaborators over the years, and I haven't found someone like Ella until now. It is a rare and sort of magical thing to find with another writer. I don't think it's an easy thing to navigate, but we have a very fine-tuned, well-developed like rapport with each other and a willingness to, even if we like flat out disagree on like a word choice, we're always willing to like, again, it's like I use the word argue, but like it's not like with any disdain for the other person, but like we actually can really respectfully like argue back and forth to actually figure out, like, sometimes it's always like there's a note beneath the note that one of us has. It's rarely like my thing that I think will fix it is the only way. It's usually like, 3 layers down, there's something about the character that one of us isn't gelling with. And we just talk everything through to the point until we're on the same page again. And that is like a huge feat. I don't know what else to call it. I feel like I spent my whole career and my whole life really just wanting to have a creative collaborator like that. And it is really not easy to find. So, and I think she feels the same way. So both of us are very like, we see it as something very precious too, that we want to protect and nurture the relationship just as much as the output from it. And so, yeah.
How come it's free on Kindle, or is that a short-term thing?
For now, they're free on Kindle. So Kindle Unlimited is a subscription service that costs, I think they maybe raised it recently. It's like $10 or $12 a month. So we do still get paid for like page count and stuff on Kindle Unlimited, and it actually. We did, I don't remember like the breakdown of numbers, but we did calculations at some point for a Christmas pick and found that the majority of our earnings actually were from it being free on Kindle Unlimited, just because it's a way to get you're not making as much money up front, but you're opened up to like millions upon millions of readers that otherwise might not buy the individual book. And it ends up being I think it's our most profitable of all the like Amazon avenues, actually.
So they actually track the page count of the reader.
Yeah. Yeah. We checked recently a few days ago. The book came out, Sweet Talk came out September 30th. It's really cool because we get to see the stats like, behind the curtain. And in our first week, I think we had 7,000 pages read on Kindle Unlimited. Which this book is 364 pages or something. I can't do math, but if anyone wants to, something like that. And obviously some people maybe haven't finished yet, whatever, but that's the
Fascinating.
yeah.
Do you, on the Kindle, do you get data like, what percent of people only read 5 pages and then, stop, or?
We don't. I'm sure Amazon is collecting all of it, but we don't. But one of the cool things that we do get to see on Kindle is if anyone has Kindle, you'll know you can highlight passages, like if you like a line or you want to keep a quote or save it, and we get to see what everyone who reads our book, what they highlight. And actually something that we've been like toying with as we completely struggle to use meta advertising is finding like the pull quotes that the most people have highlighted. So like the lines that people loved from our book, and then using that in our promo because we're like, well, this is something that might grab people more. So we're still navigating that. I have no love for Meta. They won't let us. If you go to the Smoke Show website, which there's a little QR code at the back of the book, but it's just smokeshow-entertainment.com. And we have a whole merch shop that has like a bunch of, fun, queer, like shirts and hats and bumper stickers and all this stuff. And Meta will not allow us to basically they won't let us put a pixel on our website, it's a whole thing, but basically it will give us information. It's the only reason you want to do advertising is to gain information about which ads are successful and which ones lead to someone buying your site. They will not allow our pixel to be installed because they said that our website has to do with sexuality, which means that it's like 18 plus, even though there's nothing explicit on the website. So we're unable to basically advertise our merch right now. We're trying to figure it out, but they won't let us advertise essentially on Meta to the full extent that it would be worth doing because we're queer. And that was something that they like updated in their code like in the last year since the elections.
Orange Man.
Yes, orange man. Yeah.
So I know you guys were really influenced by Lifetime movies and Hallmark movies, but are there other romance books that you all like? And are you big romance readers? I know that's like a big reading community, and now there are romance bookstores and all of that. So it seems like an exciting time to be a romance writer. And so I just wondered if you've been able to tap into that community and also what books you all like to read.
Yeah, I mean, I only really worked in like Hallmark and Lifetime world for a couple of years. So that was, I mean, and really the best part of that was finding Ella through working there. But I have been a romantic comedy movie fan my entire life. My parents love rom-coms. They introduced me to all of the, Nora Ephron classics. And my favorites are probably You've Got Mail and When Harry Met Sally, because I'm not a monster. And then, and I started reading romance. I don't know. I mean, if I'm cumulatively thinking about it, I'm like, you might have gotten, Carly, did you get me Twilight at some point? Does that sound like something you did?
Probably not.
Maybe not, but you were definitely at my birthday party when someone gave me Twilight. I was probably like 11 or something. I've known Carly since kindergarten. I've always loved reading romance. I love Jane Austen. I love Jane Eyre. I love reading romance. It's always been something that I loved. I got a Kindle Unlimited subscription in like 2016 or something like that, and that unlocked the door for me into a lot of other indie authors, which was kind of the reason why in the first place when Ella and I were weighing all of our sort of different paths forward, I said to her, I was like, the indie romance community in particular is one that really supports its own, and like self-publishing is, not as, and it's gotten less sort of taboo or looked down upon in recent years, but it's still, we went to AWP, like the writing conference recently, and we were shocked at, 20,000 attendees, and there wasn't a single workshop about self-publishing. And there were so many authors that we met and talked to who wanted to know about what we had done, and were so like flabbergasted about our own experiences. And we were just like, man, it's such a shame that there's this kind of, because it's not like, people have this idea that just because you've self-published that, something hasn't been vetted. But the truth is, other people who read vet the book, and then you can find out which self-published things are actually good. And it's just more of like a democratic process rather than an editor deciding or a publisher being like, this is what people will and won't read. But anyway, yeah, so I don't know, the indie space has been really supportive. I didn't get to go, but Ella went to GCLS this past year, which is the Golden Crown Literary Society, and it's like just a Sapphic book conference. And there are people that are traditionally published there, but it's also a ton of indie authors and self-published authors, and it's the best community of people in the entire world. I don't know. I can only compare it to a couple, like last summer, my mom and I got to go to the ALA conference in San Diego, which is the American Library Association. And that was like, that was the thing that I would say was most akin to the vibes of the queer and LGBT book community, was like librarians, which I think is not that surprising. It's like just people with like really good politics, that love books, that believe in reading and writing. And yeah, I don't know. But recent books that I've read in the romance space, especially Sapphic romance, Bloomtown is like a duology by Ali North. It's incredible. It's like a lesbian Western, and it deserves to be a TV show. We're actually talking to her about doing like an adaptation of it to go pitch as television, because it's got this like Deadwood vibe to it that's really fun. We met, what did we read recently? Cute was a really cute Sapphic one. God, oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm like blanking, but like there's so much out there, and it's such a supportive community. I mean, a lot of the advanced readers that we had prior to the book being published, you send out like advanced copies so that you can get reviews on day one from people that have already read it. And like 50% of them are authors that we've done arcs for, and it's just like there's not a feeling of like us being in competition with each other. It's like, we all win when we support each other, which is just like really beautiful to me and real. So yeah. Yes.
I'm a little bit curious about your transition from being, in a traditional movie world and more traditional careers. I think you said one was writer and then you in production side. So when you decided to just create your own company and create your own world, and what was that shift?
Yeah. So I mean, so much LA has had a really, really rough time since COVID, as an industry town. I have never, for the last at least 3 years, but really 5, since 2020, I've never known so many people, including many people that I would say were much more advanced and, further along in their careers in Hollywood, running writers' rooms or being, directing films that went to Sundance, who have pivoted completely away from the film and TV industry because there are so few jobs. So it was COVID obviously shut down physical production for a long time. That caused a lot of, sort of the pipeline started to suffer. So just like stuff wasn't being developed. And then there was like a little blip in 2022, and then suddenly the writers and the acting strike, the SAG and the WGA strikes happened. So suddenly people weren't working again. And so, I mean, a lot of people I know, I know so many people that went back to school, and like, I have friends that were in writers' rooms consistently staffed for 20 years who went back to school and are, trained to be therapists, or they started teaching at an elementary school. And like, So Ella and I, we met in when I was working as a producer at a company doing these Hallmark Lifetime movies. They, right before the writer strikes, they laid off our whole LA team, and Ella and I met we had never met in person the whole time that we were working together, because she was living in Florida. She had moved back home with her parents a year prior. She had been in LA for 10 years and then moved to Florida at the time that we started working together. And so she was visiting LA just to see friends, and we met up for a dinner a month after I'd been laid off, our first time meeting in person, and we talked for 6 hours or something crazy. We closed down the restaurant, and we were just it was the strikes had either just started or they were about to start. I think they had just started, and we were just both sort of lamenting and talking about just how unpredictable the industry was and had been even prior to COVID. It was but it was more of everyone you knew just got laid off every couple of years, but then you found another job. And that was sort of the norm in the industry, even for me. But then once COVID and the strikes happened, it was you get laid off and then suddenly you don't work for years. And I've seen that happen to so many people. And so both of us were just I've been in independent film prior, and working for a very successful indie film company in New York. So I sort of, I did have, and documentaries before that. So I had a lot of skills in my toolbox that helped me to see how much we didn't really need the mainstream studio system in order to get stuff made. And also she and I were both just coming to this conclusion of if we want to get stuff made, especially queer stories, we really have to do it ourselves. And so it was over that summer, basically, when the strikes were happening, she and I were just well, we're both on unemployment and not doing anything else. Let's just start working on the things we actually want to work on. And we did start off just working on scripts together that we, wanted to see made, but it just kind of snowballed into, again, watching all these people's, careers just either totally take a left turn or just kind of die. We were both just sort of we need to diversify. We're very creative people, and we love film and TV, and we still have those projects in the sort of smoke show wheelhouse that we're pushing forward, but we were just we need to open ourselves up to working in other mediums, especially ones where we don't need to wait for the industry to open back up or for a million person union to decide that we can go to work again. And so that's when we were let's take one of these scripts that we've worked so hard on and just let's write a book and let's self-publish and let's put it out there. And that sort of MO ended up translating into all the other stuff that we're doing too. Like I said, we're doing podcasts. That's another medium that we're able to produce ourselves and put out ourselves, and we don't have to kind of wait for someone else to tell us, obviously certain podcasts we would, but for what we're doing, it's just kind of, that's our focus is what do we want to see that we can put out on our own and organically and independently. And yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
If I might then, but was the writing itself moving from I understand writer to writer, but from production to writer, was that a different process for you, or was that just always something that was kind of in your background?
I would say that I've always been a writer, and because I also was always a reader. Mm-hmm. But even before I could write the alphabet, I would get reams of printer paper and I would pretend to be writing. So it was just some instinct in me always. And a lot of my work as a producer was in development, which is really kind of the equivalent of being a book editor, but for scripts. So I was sort of the early stage person working with writers like Ella to sort of almost just be like a script doula. You're helping an idea come from a little tiny fetus into a full movie, but really being a creative advisor. I've liaised with the people that wear the producer hat that's more on the ground and writing the budget, and I can do that a little bit, but I've always been kind of in the creative side of producing. So I think storytelling has always been sort of at the heart of even my film work. But yeah.
So there's a question from
Yes.
in the chat that someone's asking, Judy asked, how can I hear the podcast and where do I go for that?
So podcasts are not released yet, but if you go to the website, Smoke Show Entertainment, which I think is in the chat. If you go to the website and scroll down, you can sign up for our newsletter, and that will be how you'll find out about anything that we are releasing and putting out. I don't have an exact timeline for when our first podcast will be out, but that is kind of our next focus. Before we even go to writing our next book, we're gonna be
Okay, time's up.
doing it. Oh, okay. All right. Yay.
Whoa.
Ice cream will be in the social hall.
Yes, and I'll go sit at that back table. I have a few Christmas pick copies, I have Sweet Talk copies for sale, and I will be signing and inscribing if anyone wants to get their own copy.
It's not all rushed, Mr.